Wait, so get this. We're diving deep today into this article.
Oh, yeah.
It's a doozy. And
Laid on me.
it's all about how to like write poetry slam pieces that'll really make an impact, you know. But the way this guy, Stephen Pinkwart, goes about explaining it,
Yeah.
it's a little wild.
Interesting.
He actually uses this metaphor of like a coffin shelf,
The coffin shelves.
you know, dark wood,
Uh-huh.
heavy hinges,
Okay.
like almost inviting.
Inviting in what way?
Well, I mean, not like in a, hey, come sit on me kind of
Yeah.
way, but more like in a, you can't look away from it kind of way.
I see.
Like it's unsettling, but also kind of fascinating.
So he's using this image to talk about...
Poetry slam text
Oh, really?
and how to make them super impactful and memorable.
I can see how that metaphor would work.
I know, right? It's like
Uh-huh.
not your typical writing advice.
Okay. So what are some of the actual, like, tips he gives?
Oh, he's got these 3 rules for crafting what he calls coffin shelf poetry.
Coffin shelf poetry.
And rule number 1 is like, start with a metaphorical murder.
Whoa, hold on.
I know, right?
Starting strong. I like it.
It's basically like, don't be afraid to shock the audience right from the get-go.
So not literally murder,
Yeah.
obviously.
No metaphorical murder.
Okay.
More like introduce a sense of danger, you know?
Yeah.
Even if it's just metaphorical. It makes people pay attention.
Makes sense. We're kind of hardwired to notice threats, right?
Exactly. So you're tapping into that primal instinct
Interesting.
and making the audience like sit up and take notice.
Like, oh, it's going to happen next.
Yeah, exactly. And then rule number 2 is play with fear.
Okay, so we've got metaphorical murder, and now playing with fear. This is getting intense.
Yeah, he's not messing around.
No, he's not.
So he says like a coffin shelf isn't just scary because it looks like a coffin,
Uh-huh.
but because it reminds us of like, you know,
Our own mortality.
exactly.
Heavy stuff.
Right. And so by like confronting those fears in your poetry,
Yeah.
you're making the audience confront their own vulnerabilities
Right.
too.
Which can be really powerful.
Super powerful.
And
And
that-
there's a 3rd rule.
Oh, yeah. Rule number 3 is a real curveball.
Hit me with it.
It's make them laugh, then feel guilty.
Make them laugh and feel guilty. Huh?
Yep.
That's a new one.
It is, isn't it?
So like dark humor.
Yeah, basically he wants you to, like, disarm the audience with humor,
Okay.
get them laughing, and then hit them with something.
Unexpected.
Yeah, something that makes them question why they were laughing in the first place.
Oh, that's good.
Like a psychological 1-2 punch.
I like it.
He even gives this example about his cat, like thinking the coffin shelf is for her.
His cat.
Yeah, which, I mean, come on. Who wouldn't want a comfy coffin to curl up in, right? But then he drops this line. It was for something else.
Oh,
And it's just like instant mood shift. The humor turns dark, and you're left with this, like...
unease.
Exactly. He's good.
Right.
Really good.
So yeah, I mean, these rules they're a lot. It's not your typical like write about a sunny day kind of poetry advice.
Definitely not.
But I think he's onto something.
Oh, yeah.
Like there's a real power in darkness.
Absolutely.
Maybe even in life too. You know?
It's about being honest and raw.
Yeah.
And that can be really impactful.
Totally. So how do we actually like put these rules into practice?
Good question.
Because I'm not sure I'm ready to start building coffin shelves in my living room just yet.
No, neither am I. But
Maybe we can find a way to tap into that darkness in our writing.
I'm in.
Let's do it.
So, you know, we were talking about those rules before.
Those coffin shelf poetry rules.
Yeah, like start with a metaphorical murder, play with fear, make them laugh, then feel guilty.
Intense, right?
But it's more than just trying to be like edgy or whatever.
Yeah.
He's really tapping into something about how our brains work.
Like how we're drawn to danger.
Exactly. Like it's instinct to pay attention to threats.
So we can use that in our writing.
Make people feel something real, even if it's uncomfortable.
That's where the power comes from.
Yeah, that rawness.
And what about those other tips?
You mean use the darkness within you and let the emptiness speak?
Yeah. Especially that second one.
Let the emptiness speak.
It's like, how can nothing say something?
Well, think about music, right?
Okay.
Silence is important.
It is.
Creates tension, lets you think.
Yeah.
Same with poetry.
So don't explain everything.
Right. Let the audience figure some stuff out.
We trust them to get it.
Exactly. They're a part of the process then.
It's more powerful that way.
More than just telling them what to think.
So instead of like hitting them over the head with the message,
You give them a hint.
it's like a trail of breadcrumbs.
Yeah, and they follow it.
I like that.
Makes them think harder.
And connect more.
Exactly.
But okay, we've talked rules, tips, this whole emptiness thing.
There's still that book.
The Poetry Master.
It's like he thinks it's the answer to everything.
The Poet's Bible.
But what's in it?
I know.
Right?
We can only guess.
Unless we read it ourselves.
I guess.
But knowing Stefan...
And this coffin shelf thing.
It's not going to be your typical poetry advice.
No way.
Maybe some crazy writing exercises.
Ooh. Like what?
Stuff that makes you face your fears.
Like dig up old memories.
Maybe how to use silence and stuff.
To like make people feel certain emotions.
Yeah.
And maybe even a section on that laugh then feel bad thing.
That's got to be in there.
But I think it's all about finding your voice.
That raw, real voice.
Strip everything away.
Just truth.
That's powerful.
But kind of scary.
Maybe a little.
But maybe we all have that coffin shelf poet inside.
Just waiting to come out.
Maybe.
Yeah. We're sounding like Stefan.
Much time in the coffin shelf.
Let's get some air.
Back to reality.
Think about what we learned.
Yeah, good idea. Okay, so we're back. And I gotta say, this whole coffin shelf poetry thing, it's really got me thinking.
Yeah, it's intense stuff.
Would you actually write a poem like that?
I mean, it's a challenge, right? You got to really dig deep, confront those dark thoughts and feelings. It's almost like he's saying, take all the things you try to avoid thinking about and turn them into art.
Yeah, but maybe there's something to that.
Like maybe by facing that darkness, you find some kind of creative spark.
It's like a lot of art comes from those dark places, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Think about, like, Gothic novels, horror movies, even some classical music.
Exactly. They all tap into those primal emotions, the stuff we usually try to bury.
So what do you think? Would our listeners actually try writing coffin shelf poetry?
I mean, it's all subjective, right? What one person loves, another person might hate.
True.
But at least Stefan's ideas get us thinking about those darker emotions and how they can be used in art.
So maybe it's not about everyone writing poems about death and fear.
But about expanding our definition of what poetry can be.
Pushing those boundaries and making people feel something real.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm sold. I'm going to give it a try.
You gonna build a coffin shelf for inspiration?
Maybe not.
Huh?
But I do want to know more about that Poetry Master book.
The one Stefan keeps mentioning?
Yeah, is it actually worth reading?
Well, we've been guessing about what's in it for a while now.
True.
Only one way to find out.
Read it ourselves.
Exactly.
But I have a feeling it's not going to be your typical poetry how-to guide.
Knowing Stefan and his whole coffin shelf philosophy.
Right. It's probably something way more intense.
Maybe even a little dangerous.
Ooh. I like the sound of that.
So if you're listening and you're feeling brave, maybe check it out.
The book is called Poetry Master, Poesal Craft in 7 Pagan.
You never know. You might just discover your inner coffin shelf poet.
Well, on that note, I think we're going to wrap up this deep dive into the world of coffin shelf poetry.
It's been a wild one.
Full of dark twists and turns.
But I think we've learned a lot about how powerful language can be.
And how even the darkest emotions can be a source of creativity.
So remember, as Stefan says, the best texts are like coffin shells.
Disturbing, unforgettable, and absolutely brilliant.
Go forth and get creative.
Get creative.
Yes.
Stefan's signature.